welcome to the Cooler Women's Wellness Tribe, the podcast. Get comfortable, or get your walking shoes on, and let's get going. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Cooler Women's Wellness Podcast. And I have a very angelic and magical guest today. I have Clare, who is a master angelic healer. Clare works with high frequency energies to bring you into alignment, expand your consciousness, and help you to clear and release resistance. As well as this, she is a multi-dimensional channel, a crystal sound healer, and a gifted intuitive. And Clare has all the spiritual tools she has embodied on her own journey to allow her to support and guide you through your own journey. So welcome, Clare. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. And it's great to have you here. I'm very excited, and it's certainly is going to be magical. So I don't throw the term magical around very lightly. So before we get into the main part of the podcast, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, where do I start? You want to know like how I started, how I got into it?
Yeah. So just a whistle stop tour of your life, how you came to be this multidimensional angelic healer, because it's not something we usually see on someone's CV.
Yeah, well, I think, to be honest, I think I was always intuitive. There was always a spiritual aspect to my life, and I was always fascinated with what was beyond what we could see. And I started to have what I would call my first awakening, because I believe we have many awakenings through our life. So my first awakening was actually when I was 16, and I started to look into Reiki and get into meditation, and I was just getting a bit curious about all of this energy stuff. And then I did a really deep meditation and got myself into a state of absolute euphoria. And I was just completely blissed out on the bed and gazing at these candles that were flickering on my wall. And then I saw a being next to the bed and absolutely freaked out and ran out of the room. I wouldn't go back in the room for 3 days. I got rid of all the things that could have any bad juju. I was really freaked out because I wasn't used to this kind of thing at all. I just thought energy work was great. I didn't think that there needed to be any protection or anything like that. And I actually was so scared by that experience. I didn't meditate on my own again for 15 years. So it's a real shame, because obviously I was meant to come to this path, and it was my choice when I kind of stepped onto it. But that was my first experience with being able to see what most people don't see. And then I was naturally guided back to it. I started to get into The Secret, the book The Secret, and all of her other books after that. And I just kind of flowed with it and didn't really know what I was doing. I was just exploring, as a lot of us do. We're just kind of, I like meditation. I want to raise my vibration. I want to manifest X, Y, and Z. But I didn't understand what we were actually doing in the behind the scenes energetics, which is what I teach now, basically. And to come to this point, 6 years ago, I was married, 2 kids, looked like the perfect family, very, very focused on the material world and what we should be doing and how we should be acting. And it was just getting progressively more and more difficult. I'd lost myself completely in motherhood, and the marriage was breaking down. And then I had my second spiritual awakening. And it was so confusing, because my world that I knew was crumbling down around me, and I was desperately trying to hold on to it. Of course, I didn't want to break up my family. And I really didn't want that for my kids. But I was also faced with this really obvious kind of separation in what reality was, and the denial that I'd been keeping myself in to be able to keep up this facade. And so I was having this massive heart opening, and all these like downloads and codes and understandings of the universe and what we're actually here to do. And all of this stuff was just like blowing my mind open. And then I'd have these moments of, this is so ridiculous. What are you even thinking? when I was going through a breakup at the same time. So it was really confusing because half the time I was heartbroken, half the time my heart was bursting open. So it was a really like very quick transformation. And through those years, which has been, I mean, I've been working on it constantly for the last 6 years. I just kind of went into this deep excavation of my soul and of who I am and what I'm here to do and why I'm going through all of this stuff, and realizing actually, which is why my brand is called The Divine Mirror, that everything that we see around us is mirrored from what we behave like inside and how we believe life is inside. So the way that we talk to ourselves, the way I was treating myself was reflected in how I was being treated in my external reality. And so that kind of led me into, wow, well, if I can heal myself by doing this work, then I can heal others. And I was naturally guided to go into angelic Reiki and sound healing, realize that crystals was my path. I love crystals so much. They absolutely just make me so happy. And so I thought, all right, if I do sound healing, it's got to be the crystal bowls. And then, then it's kind of naturally unfolded into now helping hundreds, if not thousands of women, and a few men, but mostly women, to really transform their world and transform their lives and transform how they communicate with themselves, and therefore changing their reality as a result of that.
Yeah. Oh my God. I love that story. And as you were talking then, I don't know, I'm sure you have seen the movie Ghost. Do you know when the heavens open, the light shines down on him? Not that you were dying, but I imagined this light just coming onto you when you're talking about your divorce, and you have like the human world this side, and it was really dark, like the alleyway in Ghost, with this big light shining down on you. That's what I could see. That's what my visuals were showing me there.
Yeah, it was very much like that. It was like the guys are like, this way.
I just picked up on, so when you said, and I think a lot of my listeners will resonate with, you mentioned that your divine, your Instagram and your business, so the Divine Mirror. So I will put everything in the show notes. But the way that we do treat ourselves is a mirror of how the world treats us. And you mentioned your own treatment. If you don't mind sharing, just what were you doing and how were you treating yourself for it to sort of reflect in your life?
Yeah, massive self-neglect. I wouldn't even look in the mirror. I was breastfeeding both kids and not feeding myself properly. My body started to break down physically. I slipped 2 discs, ended up collapsing and going into the emergency. There was no part of me which was nourishing or cherishing who I was by that point. And it's a slow burn. This happens to so many of us, and we don't realize until it's really hit rock bottom how bad it is. So it's really important to become conscious of how we are communicating with ourselves, and also the external environment that we find ourselves in. Is it actually nurturing you? Is it serving your highest good? Or is it reconfirming your own toxic beliefs? Because that saying, you can't grow a flower in a negative environment. I don't know the exact words. You have to bring the flower into the space where it has the sun, the oxygen and the water and the nourishment of the earth that it needs, And so that's why I had to make that really hard decision. And of course, I didn't want to do that. I always thought I was going to be in my marriage for the rest of my life. And to this day, I love him, but it's not a love that can be maintained in a relationship anymore, So it was, just really realizing, if I want to make a change for myself and for my girls, I have to model the way. I have to make a choice to choose me, and then we'll see what happens. And it was just incremental baby steps all the way along. I didn't jump from, oh, this isn't working, to, well, I'm great, I know everything, It's been a learning journey, and it's been really processing all of the beliefs inside of me, that I'm not enough, I don't deserve love, all of those kind of things that are so subconscious, but they actually rule the way that we present in the world and what we accept for ourselves.
Yeah, I totally resonate with all that. And it's weird or not that you say about your slipped disc, because I always joke that, so I had to have 2 slipped discs, and it's what sort of put me into the yoga studio, which was then sort of the start of my path. And I joke that the universe pushed me over because I wasn't listening. And it was the universe that was like, right, we're going to have to do this to you to get you to go. Because I wasn't going anywhere to feed my soul. I was brunching, I was going out drinking, and I was so anxious, and similar to what you've just said, minus with children. And it was, you know, I hated myself. I was dating people that were no good for me, and I'm feeling bad because, you know, you're chasing something that you think that you want. And yeah, the slipped discs pushed me into where I am now. So thank you, I guess. in a way, it was very painful, but thank you.
Yeah, but the body tells us what it needs. It's communicating to us all the time, and any form of dis-ease is a communication. And even parts of the body, our organs represent different, like they store different emotions. So that part of our body, I don't know which part of your back, which one?
Yeah, mine was L4, L5.
Okay, same. And so that represents stability, safety, and financial worries. So it kind of, okay, that makes so much sense. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just like, that was basically everything that I was going through at the time. And like you, it's a journey, still working through it. I still have those moments, but now I feel that I have the tools, and I'm guessing you also have all of the tools as well. So if, say that I was coming to you, or one of the listeners came to you with this similar story, what the tools do you use? What do you draw on to help guide people through?
Yeah, so it really depends on the person. It's very intuitive. And I find that a lot of people come to me for the soul readings first because they don't actually want to admit that they need help. So they come for clarity, and then through the channel, they start to realize how they've been going about life that isn't working for them, and what they need to shift, as much as getting the clarity that they need. It goes much deeper than, oh yeah, this is the best job for you. No, I'm reading energy. That's really one of my main gifts, is reading the energy and really understanding your soul purpose. So that's one of the channels that they come through. The other is the multidimensional healing. And in that, we will have a conversation, and I just ask the right questions to really get clarity on where the reason for coming has originated from, because it's always a root cause, and it's really important to reach the root cause to be able to change the whole dynamic of the timeline that they're on. And so you very often, it's come from our inner child, from childhood, some form of trauma or some belief that was created from something we've witnessed or something that we've experienced that has made us think this is the way things are. So we just keep recreating the problem until we actually clear that. And we can store blocked energies in our body as a result of that. And then we then like overlay all these negative beliefs on top of it, because that's what life has been reaffirming to us. But it's only because we had that one root major concern in the first place. So this is where we start. I get an idea of where I like to call it the pathway. And we go through and we basically work with the physical body, the mental body, the emotional body, and the soul energy, the auric fields, to shift whatever is going on inside of them. And it's really important to handle all of those different energy bodies, because the physical body is holding on to it on a physical level, but energetically it could be coming from all different reasons, and we could be holding on to it if people believe in past lives. It could be from that, could be from generational trauma. So really seeing, actually, okay, we can heal this on a physical level today, but we also need to understand the multidimensional levels that it's going through and why it's in our life today. Why did we call that experience in? So yeah, that's basically the direction. And then from that, we usually go, because I like to see my clients go through this journey. It's not just a one and done thing. So the first experience is like kind of opening their eyes to how much we can change and also what they need to look at. And then I take them on a journey through the different lower vibrational emotions, because emotions are on a vibrational scale. Dr. Hawkins created a scale which shows you the lowest emotions all the way up to the top, which is love and joy. And so we work with the lower vibrational energies and help to release all of the stuck energy inside of us. And it's like unpeeling an onion. So releasing the layers of the onion. And then from that, within 6 or 12 months, depending on how long they want to go for it and how they're feeling, they're responding to it, because everybody's different and we're all on our own journey, then they realize, wow, okay, I'm actually a completely different person to what I started out as, because I'm no longer hiding behind the masks of what we thought other people wanted from us. And you start to implement healthy boundaries. You start to make changes that serve your highest good, as you did with your yoga, coming to a point where actually this is so much better for me than going out partying. And I'm getting so much more joy from it. And I'm finding a new path for myself. And it's just an unraveling. It's so beautiful to witness.
Yeah, and I can vouch for that once. And you do have to listen. And I wasn't listening for a very long time. And, I think very similar to you, I'd always known for myself that I'd been interested and there was things, and everyone would always say that I was a hippie trippy friend. But then I think you sort of buy into this human existence of, I have to do all of these things. And like you mentioned with, getting married, having children and following that path, but having this niggle behind. I also just want to share from when I came to one of your I came for a soul reading, and my inner child came up, and you mentioned, said it looked like I was ice skating, but I said, I used to roll, well, I rollerblade, I still do. And I had a memory of going up and down on my skates and feeling at that time very free. And we spoke about it. And the song that I used to skate up and down to was Celine Dion. I'm not going to sing it, My Heart Will Go On. And then I literally left your house and went for something to eat. And that song, out of all the songs, and this was only a couple of months ago, it wasn't as if it was in the charts, Celine Dion on in the cafe. And I sent you a message, and did I try to play it? I was like, listen to what's just come on. And I was crying, sat in this cafe and to Celine Dion. But I think that then I was like, oh my God, this is, another big message from my guides to really listen, really hook in and, tune. And that, even now, I haven't heard the song since. It's not something that and I think that came from your session, and it was kind of like we mentioned it, that my guides were listening, and then it came on in the cafe. Yeah, so I just had to share that. It's very magical for me, because I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it's just came on.
Yeah, and I find that a lot actually after my clients leave, then they'll have a confirmation from their guides or the angels or the universe, whatever they believe it to be. And it's so common actually. And I'll always have that WhatsApp afterwards say, oh, this just happened. Something that was mentioned in the channeling will come through. And it's just a really strong physical affirmation for you to be able to believe what you've just experienced, because our mind loves to take over and just say, that was so silly. No, I can't believe in this. And just kind of switches off, because the ego doesn't want the change. The ego wants us to stay the same. And this is why I work with all the levels of the body and the mind, because I need the client to understand what they're experiencing as much as whatever's happening on a physical or an energetic level, because I don't want them to go and undo what I've just done. Because we really do have so much power to be able to change our reality. And if they don't believe that, or their subconscious is still running the show, they're going to go and erase what's the good that's just been done. So it's very much about educating them and understanding what they're experiencing as much as whatever I can do on the etheric planes.
Yes, yeah, no, it's amazing. And I listen to my recording quite a lot actually, because the meditation, because I get to revisit the meditation from that day. So that was, so anyone who's interested, definitely have a soul reading with Clare. Honestly, and then please, if you do, let me know as well what your message is after. If you have a Celine Dion message. And let's just go back. So I wrote down crystals here and underlined it. I get a lot of women, actually someone messaged me the other day, and she'd listened to a podcast and I'd mentioned crystals, and she's just gone off to buy her first crystals. And yeah, just how did I'm sat here now with selenite, and what else is there? Amethyst, and I always have them around. How what do crystals mean to you? And if anyone's listening and they've probably seen them around, how can they be used as well?
Oh, they're so powerful. It's up to us how much we tune into that frequency, because everything in the world, everything in our life has a frequency, including ourselves. And with crystals, obviously they all have their own different meaning, which we're guided in the shop. For example, like amethyst is good for clearing, and selenite is good, really good for energetic clearing as well. So you might be on a mission with that right now. And for example, something like jasper or tourmaline would be good for anchoring and grounding. And they all have their own different resonance in that sense. But also the consciousness and the intention that we bring to these crystals really amplifies what they can do for us. So, for example, my crystal balls, I've been working with them for so long with the angelic frequencies. They're already attuned to my energy and the angelic energies. So they're able to create a ripple effect through the room and even beyond. Actually, I set the intention to send the healing to whoever needs it. And they magnify my energy. And to understand the power of crystals, you only need to look at your smartphones. This is a tiny, like, incredibly powerful computer which can do anything we need, and it works from a tiny little crystal chip. And so sending messages across the world in one split, like less than a split second, it's so incredible to think, wow, that's done with crystal technology. So if you're working with a crystal, I've got one here, this is apophyllite, it's incredibly high frequency crystal. And if you're working with this consciously and you're connecting your heart with it and you're setting your intentions of what you want to bring in through this crystal, it can change your life. Just like if someone was doing a ritual or was doing a regular meditation, it's bringing intention into your life and resetting yourself so that the old programming doesn't just continue to run and keep creating the same kind of results. This is why we feel like we get stuck or we plateau at a certain level. It's because we're ready for the next level and we're ready for that next raise of vibration, but we haven't taken that physical action to be able to connect with it. And that's what I love about crystals. They're a physical manifestation of what we're trying to create. So once you've tuned that in and you've programmed the crystal, you can leave it in your room and it will continue to keep sending out that signal even when you're not consciously thinking about it. Because your energy bodies are interacting with the energy of the crystal, you'll start having that reminder of, oh yeah, I need to meditate again, or I need to take a deep breath and just reset. It's just so incredible. I mean, I could go so deep into that, but that's enough for today.
I think another podcast just on crystals, because I do get lots of my friends are always sending me pictures of crystals, and I'm like, I'm really not an expert. I know quite a lot because I have a few, and I have a couple of books that I read. But yeah, I think it is, and I think women and some men actually are drawn. I think once you start getting drawn to crystals, I feel like that's when also your mind is telling you, or it's sort of one of the first steps to taking your new path.
Definitely. Yeah, that's what happened with me. It was just suddenly I was like, because I always liked crystals, but I never bought them. I actually never felt like I even deserved to buy them because they're quite expensive for a piece of rock that comes out of the ground. So there was this kind of like, yeah, that's pretty, but then I'd walk away from it, And then when I was going through everything I was going through, it was just suddenly this really loud conversation inside of me, just like, get crystals. And it was just like, okay, this one. Sometimes I would be guided into a place that I didn't even know was open, and suddenly I'm like in this treasure trove of crystals. It really helped me on my journey, and it is one of those beginning parts of the awakening. I would definitely say that.
Yeah, my crystal journey actually started around the same time as I hurt my back, and my dad was having his treatment in hospital for cancer. And there was a lady just selling crystals in the hospital, and I'd already been reading about crystals, but the same was like, oh, I'm not going to buy, it's silly to spend that much money on something like, in my head, I was stuck in my head with it. And this lady was just in the hospital selling, and I went over, and I have the pendulum still, it's here. I got my first pendulum because it literally swung, and I was like, even my dad was like, I think that's meant for you. So I took the pendulum and a jade, and we got my dad a bloodstone because he had cancer related to the blood. And I was like, right, you need to keep this. And it was in his hospital. He still has it now. He still carries it around, and a tiger's eye. And that was kind of, then I was like, I actually feel good. And I was carrying this jade with me all of the time. And then it escalated. And now I have a rock collection, according to my boyfriend. He said, I didn't know I signed up for someone who collects rocks.
And I think what you just said is so important in terms of how it feels. How does your body respond to this? And I think asking that regularly is so valuable through life, whether it's crystals or anything else. How does your body respond when you choose this? Is it right for me or is it wrong for me? Our body is communicating to us all the time.
Yeah, and that's something that I learned. I wouldn't say I always know that, but recently, since I've been more attuned, and I do, when you get that feeling that it's a no, but you still say yes, and you have to learn to say that no. And now if I have that feeling, I'm just no, because I know it feels worse when I say yes. And there was something that I agreed to at the beginning of this year, and my body was like, no, 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 no. My ego was thinking, you're going to Las Vegas in the summer, take the money, take the money. So I said yes. Everything went wrong. I didn't have the money. I won't go into the story. But then I was like, right, thank you, universe, because I've taken it as a lesson that listen to your body, because it was a whole situation and my body was like, no, no, no. My intuition was screaming. And I listened to this human ego of, take the money, it'll pay for XYZ in Las Vegas. And yeah, it's now I'm like, no, if it doesn't feel right in my body, it's a no.
Yeah, I feel like that's discernment, isn't it? And it's a muscle that has to be learned. It's not something that we can skip. We have to kind of learn it by testing the water, and maybe, like when a kid touches a flame and like, ow, okay, I know that I'm not meant to touch that anymore, So it's like exploring, how it feels and whether it's a yes or a no. And also one of the things that I always teach when I'm teaching about developing your psychic abilities and opening up to understanding energies is really listening to your intuition, even if it feels silly, even if it feels really small, like it's not going to make any difference. Acting on that means that you're strengthening that muscle and you're strengthening your faith to be able to believe it. Because as a result of taking that small micro action, you might then have a domino effect of events that guides you into the right place. Just like you were inside of the hospital and you chose the crystals. And it's then gone, oh, that's actually working. It feels good. Let me try this. Let me try this. And it's a whole new path. It's suddenly opened up to you. And it was one tiny little decision that felt right.
Yeah. And that is exactly it. And now, I have, and I don't know, you'll probably get the same now when I go into crystal shops. Sometimes I have to walk because I've tuned in the energy. So I go into the shop. I have to leave the shop to sort of give myself a minute before I go back in, because I walk in and it's kind of like my hair feels like it's on end and there's just too much. If it was noisy, it would sound like a school playground, just all the crystals.
They're all going, pick me, pick me, pick me.
Exactly how it feels. I'm like, right, I need to step out and then come back in. But just feeling that energy. I've also wrote down here, so I wrote water and fire. And so just quickly, we spent an evening together not long ago. You hosted sound healing and it was so beautiful. The Dubai summer just came on the cusp of that. And so for the listeners, you may have seen it if you've got me on social media. We went horse riding, spent time in nature. It was perfect. And then we had a sound healing session, everything led by Clare. And we were on the horses watching the sunset, and we were stood by the water, and we both sort of have that water connection. We both have water signs, and even the picture behind, actually, from what I can see as you're sat there, looks like, yeah.
Very
yeah. And then obviously you just mentioned as well about touching the flame. So how we have the 4 elements, how important are, so like tuning in, so enjoying the water or getting out into the air, grounding on the earth. So how important is that? Because I know we had that moment with the water, and that even now I still, if I close my eyes, I still have that peace from being by that water there.
Oh, that's so beautiful that you can still tune into that energy. So I work with all of the elements, and the reason I've come to the elements after a very long angelic journey is because when we have our awakening, very often people skip out of the body. I certainly did, and I was getting very lost in all of the things that I could manifest and creations that were outside of the physical realm, because the physical was actually too uncomfortable to be in very much at that point of time. And that could also be manifesting in people if they're always in their mind, they're always thinking. And so I work with the elements to rebalance our physical body, because embodiment is the key to being able to master manifestation and changing the physical reality. Otherwise, we tend to have a lot of physical shocks, like we were talking about our slip discs. Physical shocks in the physical reality to get us to come back into the body. So it's, 1 is awakening, but 2 is actually becoming present in the physical and seeing the beauty and the gift that life has given us by being human beings on this planet and connecting with nature. We are nature. You know, we are literally a physical manifestation of nature, another part of this planet. So reconnecting to that and realizing that all of the illusion that we're fed by the media, social media, our expectations of what life should be like, all of it has really removed the humanity of our physical life. And so I'm really, really passionate about bringing people back to what really matters. And that's where we find the joy. We're striving for it, from buying the next gadget, or, you know, having the nice outfit, or finding a new group of friends. You know, all of that is great, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but it's so much deeper than that. It's being in tune with who we truly are that matters. So I use the elements as tools to bring people back to that. So for example, earth, we connect with the physical body, you know, starting to honor our body. How often, like I said at the beginning of this journey, like I was neglecting myself so much. I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror. I was a walking skeleton at that point in time. And so coming back to thanking the body for all the incredible miracles that happen every single day inside of us to keep us walking and breathing and talking, and, you know, all of the things that we like to do. And how often do we actually even thank our bodies for that, you know? As well as connecting with the plants. You know, I always have flowers in my house. I have loads of plants as well. Like all of the beautiful physical things that earth has provided for us to give us the oxygen that we need to be able to breathe, which brings me into air, which also, like all of these elements represent different parts of our body. So earth is body, air is mind, it's the thoughts. And this relates to how we read the tarot as well. So air with the thoughts, it's like, how can we bring peace back to our thoughts? Because when we're thinking too much, we're probably more than likely, either we've got heavy cloud over our heads, you know, when your head feels really heavy, or it's like this whirlwind. And that can also manifest as anxiety, for example, or racing thoughts or obsessive thoughts, negative thoughts, all of these things. So finding ways to rebalance the air element to be able to bring us back into alignment, stilling and slowing the mind so that we can make decisions that really serve our highest good. And with water is it's the emotional element. It's based in our sacral chakra, and our sacral chakra is also connected to creativity. So allowing ourselves to come back to flow. And you know how you were saying that level of peace that you were experiencing next to the water. How can you slow your waters down so that they're not huge emotional waves, which I was definitely experiencing at the beginning of my journey, these like peaks and troughs. And how do I rebalance this? Well, we do it by bringing different elements in, like in Chinese medicine. We bring in earth to rebalance the water, for example, or we might use water to cleanse something that needs to be released. So there's so many different energetic tools that I'm going to be teaching in my next program, but that's just a little mini example. And I'll just touch on fire before I finish on that. Is fire is the element of transformation, and it's also action. So how can we use, for example, anger? We so often judge anger as a bad energy. And of course, it's not something we want to be our dominant emotion. But when anger comes up, it's usually because we're feeling like something is crossing our boundary. So how can we honor that anger and actually use it and redirect it into something that's creative? So when I'd get triggered, I'd always think, well, am I going to stay in victim? Or how can I use the power of the energy that's moving through me to push it into something that's going to create for the good, which would be obviously my business. So I just be like, right, okay, I've got a lot of energy inside of me. How can I channel it? And it becomes this force for good. So fire can be really destructive, or it can be really nourishing and warming and allow us to cook our food and create nourishment for the body. So using the elements to bring everything back into balance. And ultimately, my whole aim is to bring people into the beauty of life itself so that they can experience their life with a level of gratitude that they've been completely missing. It's just, I mean, it's an ongoing, lifelong experience to go in through this work and to get deeper and deeper into it. But the way that I've created the program is to give mini bites of how to activate it in their lives, and they can choose like all of them or just a few of them, which will make huge impacts rippling out through their life, and like just tailoring what works for each different person, because everybody's going to resonate with different things, you know.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And I think just having that understanding of the elements, and like you said, you know, when you are angry, instead of letting that anger eat you up, because you do, you know, everyone will know if you have a bad morning and that slight bit of anger because of the traffic then results in being angry at wherever you're going, and then you stir that anger all day, just seething, smoldering away, that fire. But instead of using that anger, passion, and putting it somewhere, you know, using it for good instead of just allowing it to eat away. I love that. I read somewhere that what was it? It was talking about giving, when you're angry and you give someone a piece of your mind, but changing it for peace, as in PEACE. And I actually think about that when I do get angry, especially, and I know I mentioned traffic a lot, but the traffic in Dubai is the one thing that can tip me into that anger. But even now I think, right, they're not having the peace of my mind rather than a piece of my mind. And then I then turn that anger, that frustration into something else right there. Because I'm like, no, I'm not giving my peace away. And I'll leave it, and I'll have that passion. I'll come home, and it might be that then I'm like, right, I'm going to write this email, I'm going to do this, and use that energy elsewhere. So it's, that sounds...
I'd love to speak into that, actually, because we often find that if we have a predominant emotion, it's protecting us from the emotion that we don't want to face. So, for example, with traffic, I mean, I don't want to project, but I would assume, I know that for me, if I'm triggered by traffic, it's usually actually the underlying emotion is fear. And it's fear of survival, because the person who has cut you up, for example, has actually endangered your life in that moment. So honoring the fear can help you to release some of that anger. So you have to we work in tandem sometimes with the two emotions to be able to start processing them, and to remind yourself, I'm in control of my life. I'm in control of my energy field. And if I'm in alignment, I'm not going to be calling that accident in. Like you were saying, when you're not listening to your guides, you're much more likely to have an accident than if you're actually tuning into what is best for you in this moment. You'll be continually stepping onto a path which keeps you out of danger.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I think, totally, with on the roads, it's always been for me, I guess a bit of a fear, because when I was younger, my friends were driving and we were in a car accident. Well, two friends had two different car accidents with two different friends. And I feel like that is just stuck with me, which is why when I'm in the car, it's the thing that triggers me the most. And it is fear. It's fear of obviously reliving those car accidents from when I was a teenager. So yeah, that makes complete sense. And people pulling out and putting my life in danger. But I do say that sometimes. I'm like, it's so selfish. They're putting everyone's lives at danger driving like that. And you know, it's there in my subconscious, I think. So yeah, that makes
and honoring that, like that was
yeah.
a traumatic experience, and those emotions are very real. So really honoring them and not making yourself wrong for having these feelings, even the feeling of anger, which is actually defending your life, honoring it so that you can integrate the wisdom and release the negative energy. I reckon you're going to go away and have a think about those moments. Like, okay, is this actually happening to me in this moment? And thank you so much for the wisdom that I received from those experiences, because it means that I take this seriously and I'm careful on the road. But we just don't have any control of what other people do around us ever. And when we try to control them, that's when we start to pull ourselves out of alignment. So how can we focus on our own alignment? And that's where all of the magic happens.
Yeah, it's bringing it back in. Thank you. So is there anything else, any last words that you'd like to leave the listeners with today?
I think we've said so much already. I feel like I've been talking for hours. No, I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for having me. It's been really, really fun. And I hope that what we've shared today has changed some people's realities and just, shifted people on a micro level to think, wow, okay, I can implement just one or two of those tools in their life to make a difference. And that's all you need, is just continually checking in. Is this working for me? How can I shift it so that it's in more alignment? And it can be very, very small to begin with. It doesn't need to be overwhelming or overpowering. Just what is that one good thing that I can do for myself today that might make a little difference in my life?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. And you mentioned your program. I will put everything in the show notes. So your Instagram, website, your new program, when does that start? Do you have a start date?
So that's elemental being, but I'm separating up into elements as well. So if they just feel called to experience one of the elements, they can buy just one element. And it launched on the 8/8 portal, which is 8th of August. That powerful date and channeling all of that energy for good. So yeah, it would be lovely to have some of your listeners in the container with us.
Yeah, perfect. Yes. And like I say, everything will be in the show notes. It's a Lionsgate portal on the 8th of the 8th. So I could have guessed that if I was to put money on. I could make the 8th of the 8th. Thank you very much, and thank you everyone for listening, and I will see everybody in the next episode. Thank you, Claire.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
And that's it today, everybody. I hope you have a lovely week, and I'll see you again next week. Don't forget, 5 stars, download, tell your friends. You're amazing.